Hi, friends! Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, or if you're new here, welcome to the Cripple Chronicles. My name is Becca, an amputee, disabled goblin on the internet that talks about all things disability, mental health, and the chaos of life. When I am recording, I have just posted my Cripple Wrapped episode, and there was maybe 20 minutes at the end of it where I was talking about what's kind of changed in the last 6 years. I was very hopeful that I would be able to record an overview of 2025 and what my goals are for 2026. I am recording this on the 29th of December, so that clearly has not been possible. I am posting my Cripple Wrapped video today, and then the end of that video / what you are now seeing. So this is some reflection of 6 years of being disabled since my car accident, and this is just a little bit of an introduction for that because this was at the end of like a 40-minute recording, so I thought it would do better maybe on its own. If you enjoy this, please leave your thoughts in the comments. You can send me an email to cripplecchroniclespod@gmail.com. You can get in contact with me on social media at Cripple Chronicles Pod. I hope you enjoy and the festivities have been gentle for you. Six years since the accident, what has changed? I wanted some more reflective questions, not just stats, but how these past 6 years have actually changed me. I wrote some questions that hopefully I can come back to each year. You can maybe use these yourself if you have had a big life change and want to check in with your future self. I'm going to read these questions out and then talk through the answers that I just let flow out for where I am right now, 6 years on. Question 1. How has my relationship with my body changed? 6 years ago, my relationship with my body was very medical. My body was something that had been broken, cut into, pinned back together, scanned, monitored, commented on by professionals who often spoke about me like I wasn't even there. It was either a brave recovery story or a complicated case. I was grieving a very physical kind of loss. I had gone from walking, working as a nurse, doing long shifts, to being bedbound and having to rely on everyone for almost everything. For 2.5 years, I could not take a proper shower. I washed my hair in the kitchen sink. I used a commode. I needed carers and family to get me out of the house. My body felt like it was something that things were being done to, rather than something that I actually lived inside of. I remember looking at my leg in the frame and feeling like it wasn't mine. I remember looking at the scars and the pin sites and thinking, I don't know this body. And I remember resenting it for a long time for not healing faster, for not doing what the doctors wanted it to do. And I guess now, 6 years on, my relationship with my body is still complicated, but there's a lot more softness to it there that wasn't there before. I'm proud of what my body has survived. Car accident, surgeries, infections, sepsis, being in that frame for years, an amputation, recovery for that, learning to use a prosthetic again and again and again, going back to the absolute basics of sitting, standing, transferring, using a wheelchair. I'm proud of the way that I have adapted, even when the systems around me have not. I still get frustrated. I miss being able to do things without planning them 3 days in advance. I still have days where I feel like my body's betraying me. But I'm much less interested in punishing it, and I'm more interested in working with it. If I could speak to the version of myself that was lying in that hospital bed in 2019, I think I would say that you'll never go back to how things were. And that'll hurt even 6 years later. But you'll learn to build a different life that still has joy in it. Your body will never be what it was, but it will still carry you through the things that you can't even imagine yet. I really didn't think that I was going to cry this episode, but I guess I've surprised myself with that one. How has my sense of self changed? Before the accident, so much of my identity was tied to being a nurse. I had worked for years to get there. I had just started as a registered mental health nurse on an acute ward. I was Nurse Becca, and that meant everything to me. Those years struggling my way through uni, learning to support other people, offering empathy and compassion to patients whilst fueling myself with self-hate and shame. Nursing became my reason for being. I had zero sense of self-love, so my sense of self was almost entirely based on what I could give back to other people. If I was useful, if I was caring, if I was good at my job, then maybe I would be allowed to exist. That was the logic that my brain ran on. Lying in that hospital bed after the accident, or later bedbound in a bare walled room whilst the people I studied with went to work through a global pandemic, I felt useless. I felt like I was living for my family and not for myself. I didn't want to have to do any of it, and I felt like I'd lost myself completely. For the longest time, I had to distance myself from ever being a nurse again because it was too painful. The idea of returning to that system as a professional after everything I had experienced as a patient felt impossible. I didn't have the heart to slot back in and pretend that I hadn't seen what I had. 6 years on, my sense of self has widened. I'm a podcaster, a writer, a mentor, a disabled advocate, a friend, a very tired cat mum, a partner, a sister in a non-traditional sense. I am loved by myself and the people around me so deeply. I never really believed that I would come out of a place where I hated who I was, and I was so terrified of people seeing me struggle. Like, I can't ever imagine 6 years ago me setting up a camera and sitting with a microphone knowing that I have nearly 100 subscribers and I'm just letting my feelings out. I used to think that being seen struggling made me weak. I don't feel that anymore. I have people around me who don't need me to be perfect, they just need me to be Becca. They do not love me because I'm productive or useful. They love me because I'm me. Trauma has a shite way of stripping everything back, and when you already have complex trauma living underneath, it can feel like it leaves you with nothing. I spent a long time really not knowing who I was in the first place. 6 years ago, if you tried to tell me that everything happens for a reason, I probably would have screamed or cried, because that was meant to be the time that was the start of stability. And it felt like it got ripped away from me in the cruelest way. Now, with years of physical and mental healing behind me, I do not think the accident was meant to be. I do think that everything getting smashed to pieces really forced me in a way to figure out who I am. I just wish that it didn't have to be so fucking metaphorically literal. Sometimes I do wonder, genuinely, if the accident had not happened, would I have let unsafe drinking, drugs and sexual encounters slowly overtake me? Would I have repeated the generational cycle of addiction that I desperately wanted to break but I didn't fully understand how to? My sense of self now is not just Nurse Becca. It's Becca who survived, who changed, and who is slowly learning how to live for herself. How has my support network changed? 6 years ago, I had a very different relationship with my biological family. There was a lot of obligation, a lot of trying to keep the peace, a lot of swallowing my feelings to avoid conflict. I was the one who blended in, who did not cause trouble, who made myself smaller so that everyone else could be okay. I also had friends, but I don't think I understood just how important my chosen family would become. Since then, I have gone no or very low contact with some family members, and that has been painful and complicated and messy, but also extremely necessary for my mental health. In their place, I have built something more stable. Friends like Eleanor, Felix, Rachel, and the others who show up in consistent, thoughtful ways. People who will drive to see me, sit with me in hard days, celebrate my silly wins, and call me out gently when I'm being mean to myself. People who are there for me for hospital appointments, not because they have to be, but because they want to be. People who remember anniversaries that I've not even mentioned and send a message. People who know my trauma and still find me a lovely, caring and funny person. Through my mentoring with MCR Pathways, I have also found a deep sense of community and purpose that goes well beyond my own story. Being a trusted adult for a young person connects a lot of my values from nursing with something that is more sustainable for my health. So my support network has been shifted from being heavily weighted towards family expectation to being more about chosen family, community and mutual care. I think I never really understood the phrase "it takes a village to raise a child" until these last few years. Through mentoring, friendships that have taught me things, and even some that have fizzled out, the people who support me like family now, I have learned that it is all about community. I did so much healing alone, with the frame on, with exhaustion, and in those long quiet nights where it felt like it was just me and my thoughts and some terrible TV show. But so much of my healing has come through community, being safe around others to be myself, and being able to be the happiest version of myself, even when there are still some extremely shitty moments. What am I proud of this year that has nothing to do with productivity? It would be so easy for me to sit here and say, I'm proud that I did those 21 episodes. I'm proud that I drove 10,400 miles. And those are true, but I want to name the things that are not just output. I'm proud that I've let myself rest more without hating myself for it as much. That is still a work in progress, but there are days where I can say my body needs a quiet day and actually listen instead of forcing myself to crash because I think that somehow I need to earn the rest when I'm already struggling. I'm proud of the boundaries that I've set with family, with services, with professionals who are not listening. I've written hard emails, sat in uncomfortable appointments, and refused to let people talk over me. I am proud that I have continued to talk honestly online about being disabled, even when it means I'm not the inspirational version of disability that people want. I do not want to just be some success story. I want to be a person who is honest about trying to survive the systems when the goalposts keep on moving. I'm proud that I'm actually starting to like myself because that is huge. I have moments now where I catch myself in the mirror and instead of seeing scars or weight or a missing leg, I see someone that I recognise and that I actually feel protective of. I am proud that when my inner critic starts, I have more tools to quiet it down. Like, on my birthday, it kind of just felt like any normal day. It was the first year that I have not had anybody from my biological family actually contact me on my birthday. And that inner critic in my head was just screaming that I am not special. But I was able to tell the people around me that and feel the love and feel celebrated and feel special. I'm proud that I am kinder to my younger self inside of my head instead of constantly ripping her to shreds when she was just trying to survive. Question 5. What still hurts the most? There's lots that still hurts. I think one of the biggest things is how many setbacks have not come from my body but from systems. I expected my recovery to be slow and hard because, yeah, my injuries were severe. But what I didn't really expect was to still have to be fighting 6 years later for basic access, to be still chasing prosthetic services, to be told that a wheelchair accessible kitchen would somehow disable me more, to constantly pay the price for the way services delay, ignore, and minimise. It hurts that housing and accessibility are treated like optional extras. Accessible homes are harder to find, often more expensive, and there is a huge shortage. If you need step-free access, wider doors, a turning circle for a wheelchair, that can narrow your world so much. It hurts that so much of my life has had to spend advocating, writing emails explaining the same story over and over to different professionals who just haven't bothered to read the notes, correcting people when they make assumptions, pushing back when I'm gaslit or dismissed. Most of this happens behind the scenes because it is exhausting to live it and it is exhausting to talk about it. There's a weight to it, a disappointment, a feeling of being dehumanised for living in a disabled body that I had zero control over. I often wonder if I didn't have to spend so much time advocating for basics, would I actually have more energy for the things that light me up? More energy for the podcast, for content, for building a job or a career that actually fits me and doesn't fuck me over financially. It hurts to see people move on with their life, meeting milestones that I thought I might have been at by now. Careers, houses, holidays that don't have to involve a spreadsheet of access checks. I'm hurtling towards 30 and I still feel like I'm stuck at 22, just out of uni with no real job. I know what I want for my career. I see the shape of it in my head, but whether that exists in a way that fits my body and my needs is a whole other question. And it might take many more hours and spoons of advocacy to even see where it's possible. I'm also sad that this has basically been the first year that I haven't had no contact from my biological family. Which, yeah, I feel lighter for it. There's less expectations, fewer rooms where I need to swallow my feelings to keep the peace, but for everyone but myself. I'm angry and hurt, but I'm also coming to terms with it. There have been so many things this year that I have achieved, and I did not need their validation or pride for it to make it real. I had enough of my own. I had people around me who celebrate the small wins in the same way they celebrate the massive ones. So what hurts is the systems, the lost time, the grief for the life that I thought I would have, and the complicated grief of family. But I think it's also really important to say that it might hurt, but there's a lot of relief from those things too. What am I hopeful about for the next year? I'm hopeful about building more sustainability in my life. That means pacing the podcast in a way that works for my body, not trying to match what people perceive as some kind of normal output. It means continuing to build my skills and advocacy, my writing work into something that could be a career that fits my disability, rather than constantly begging systems to bend when they clearly do not want to. I'm hopeful that I will continue to strengthen my relationships with the people that show up for me consistently and soft launch some new ones. I'm hopeful about more time with friends, more in-person laughs, more stupid inside jokes. I'm planning on doing a mood board over Christmas and New Year for 2026. That is one of my plans with Eleanor and Jay. We are going to have a little Christmas crafting session and make our little mood boards. I want to put my full plans and goals on there, even if they feel silly or unrealistic. I want it to be a visual reminder of what I'm working towards instead of always reaching to the next crisis. I do want to dedicate time to completing a half marathon. I know from my averages that I have covered the distance of quite a few marathons across the year, but it is different to deliberately train towards something and then be able to actually do it in one go. I want to see what it looks like for me in a wheelchair and with my current mobility, and I want to do it in a way that is being kind to my body and not punishing myself. I am hopeful about the disability community. I see disabled people and allies pushing for change so that we can live instead of being punished for existing in circumstances that are out with our control. I hope more people start to see disability as something that will touch all of us in some way at some point, and that advocating for disability rights is not a niche issue, it is future proofing for everyone. I'm hopeful that I will hopefully have less NHS waiting times, or at least better communication around them. I am hopeful that I eventually will get a home that suits my needs, whether that is the council actually adapting my kitchen or me having to move to find somewhere that suits me better. I hope that professionals will actually start to see disabled people's experiences instead of coming in, speaking to them for 15 minutes and thinking that you know their whole life from one small snapshot. Most of all, I am hopeful that I will continue to grow into a life that feels like mine, not something that I am just surviving. Thank you so much for watching this little extra episode of the Cripple Chronicles. If you are watching this on the beginning of 2026, then Happy New Year. I hope you have a lovely 2026 and it brings all that you wish for. I am going to take some time and recover because my body felt a lot over the Christmas period. I got unwell because I was run down. My head's killing me. I've got a cough. My nose is a bit blocked. So, yeah, look after yourselves this cold and flu season. Think of your friends or family members who may be more susceptible to these things and try to keep them safe and look after them. And most importantly, look after yourselves. I will see you in the next one. Bye!